Welcome back. Did you know that African American females earn nearly double the number of bachelor's degrees compared to black males? Statistics indicate 66% for females and 34% for males. Why is a question you may be thinking? Well, our next guest researched this topic for his dissertation. Today we are honored to have Bronx native Dr. Jonathan Woney join us to share insights from his research, discuss his career, and talk about his passion for education. Doctor, I want to thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, can you just tell us a little bit more about your background and why you're so passionate about education?
So for me, just growing up in the Bronx, I went to Harry S. Truman High School, where back then there was an emphasis on more of surviving because the school was it was a lot going on, right? And one of those kids from the Bronx, you get caught up, and you find yourself at a crossroad. What should I do? Is college the answer? For me, it was work, right? And it was just a lot to just, take in and, single family household, having to work as a black male. College is not always in the picture, right? So for me, it was finding a way to be able to help those who are in similar situations. I didn't go to a 4-year school. I started with Bronx Community College, went on to the College of New Rochelle, worked my way to a graduate program at the College of New Rochelle, and then ultimately getting a doctorate. I'm a firm believer, where there's a will, there's a way. And circumstances shouldn't be able to hold you back. So I want to provide that to the youth and to people out there who are facing similar situations.
Now, I definitely love that you're from the Bronx. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you talked about the high school that you went to. Now, I think if you're from the Bronx, no matter what year you went to high school, you either know about the high school's history, or they'll talk about how it changed. Can you talk about maybe your high school career and what inspired you, despite being in certain situations? How that resilience led you to the path that you're on now.
Sure. So for me, high school was a little different. Getting caught up in stuff, trying to survive, having siblings in there, all that was going on. High school guidance counselors being so overwhelmed because your caseload is maybe 150 to 200 students. So how are you going to do your job effectively when you have to tackle social emotional learning? Because a lot of the students, i.e. myself, are going through a lot of things even before you get to education. So seeing that, getting caught up in the mix, I was actually put out of Truman. And I went to Columbus High School YABC program, a night program, where I got to evaluate my life. And I was like, what is it gonna be? You gotta do something. I was thinking military, but then I was like, do I really wanna, And then I was like, let me give college a try. And ultimately, it worked.
And then you talked about Bronx Community College, which is so super local in
Yeah,
the Bronx.
yeah, yeah.
It's like everybody knows about Bronx Community College. As an educator, I understand that you have a unique perspective on the educational system. Can you talk a little bit more about that perspective?
Sure. So for us, as people of color, specifically black, it wasn't it was but a little while ago that it was against the law for us to start reading, to learn. So for me, I'm all about taking advantage of this, understanding what statistics are saying, and how black males make up the lowest graduation rate in the nation, and Latino males make up the second lowest. And as y'all pointed out earlier, their counterparts, black women, double the rate. So how do we fix this? And it's tackling social emotional learning, tackling those barriers that could potentially, dissuade them from going to college and then finishing. Okay, once they get to college, then what? We need to support them. There has to be an avenue for them to go to. I preach awareness and finding people who are like-minded, like you. There are tons of clubs out here that you can participate in to keep you going and to find that support. So
now I also want to add too, because you mentioned once you get into college, that now what, right? Because a
Right.
lot of people, it's like getting there is like part of the battle, but continuing to move forward,
Right.
is another part of that battle. Can you just talk about that challenge and why it may be somewhat of a struggle for a lot of people to continue college, especially those who are from areas like the Bronx, where
Yeah.
they're dealing with a plethora of other things as well.
So I think the saying today is life is lifing, right? It doesn't stop, So although people are going through what they're going through, it's a matter of what can we do to support them. So there has to be colleges, clubs, friends, some sort of support that can provide that level of support for our young students who are going through everything. One of the things that I constantly relate to is this theory, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Where you can have the expectations for them to graduate, to learn when you get to college. However, if they have other needs, they have to work, they need money. Before I get to school, I'm dealing with child care issues. Mom didn't come home last night. Where's the outlet?
Right.
So how do you meet that need so they can focus on just learning, and being a student?
Right. Now, I want to know what inspired you to actually take the next step, because you accomplished, what you accomplished in education, but what made you want to become an educator?
So it was actually in graduate school. I realized communications was really my niche, right? And as a student, we're on one side of the table. It's a totally different thing when you're on the other side. So I was always curious. I was always helping some of my graduate compadres, and I told them, if you're in my group, we're gonna get an A, but you gotta earn it. So then I realized, and I was given an opportunity to actually teach a course, and I was like, okay, this is a little weird, but it wasn't half bad, and that was 11 years ago. So it's interesting, but that goes back to finding your niche, what works for you, matching your passion with your purpose, and finding a lane for yourself.
Now, what areas of this work do you find most fulfilling, and how do they align with your commitment to community empowerment?
Just engagement. I feel like my personality itself is unique, right? So being able to speak to those young men, young women, and everyone at large has just been like an amazing experience. Best part of what I do. I'm also from the Bronx, so you can't be scared of people.
Right.
So I feel like anywhere I go in the Bronx is safe, right? I'm gonna liven up a room when things are a little quiet or awkward. I'm gonna make it a little awkward. We're gonna start laughing, but we're gonna get to talking. And once you start talking, we're gonna talk about your purpose, and we're gonna start, thinking about some things we haven't thought about possibly, and we're gonna work towards our dreams.
I think that's so important, like an important personality trait to have in education, especially if you're working with young people or people from different backgrounds where, a quiet room isn't like the most comforting. Like sometimes people like want to be in a room where people are talking and it's lively. Can you tell me, about like why it was important to kind of bring that part of you to your work?
I feel like that's probably the best part of me, the fact that I'm accessible. Right, I'm in your face. We're talking, we're laughing. At times you could be crying, but I'm gonna be there for you. And I think growing up, we didn't see a lot of that. Although we had that community sense, there still was a piece missing where you're visible as a leader in our community, and I try to make myself readily available. So, yeah.
Now, talking about being a leader, I want to touch on the fact that a lot of your work, is focused on African American and Latino males, and their visibility in colleges. Can you just talk about that topic and the significance of addressing the inequities that are in education, especially amongst those young males?
Yeah. So for the study I did, I think I used Mercy College's HEOP program. And there I met some amazing young men. I conducted a focus group where we got to discuss those barriers. You know, what was hindering them from continuing. Although they were succeeding because they was in this program and they had the support, they had different, ideas of what they would need as far as a level of support. So hearing that, getting that data, reporting it back to the provost of the college and letting them know what works, what doesn't work, evaluating the program was everything. So I thank those young men, but you got to hear a lot as far as like being a commuter student versus living on somebody's campus, not having the actual experience, needing bus passes, needing to go to work, so having to make the choice between going to work or going to class. Those are life decisions, big life decisions for these young men. So getting to speak to them, getting to hear a lot of what they were going through, some of the advisors who were good and some of the advisors who need a little bit more work when it comes to engaging them was important to hear. I'm a firm believer in being proactive in your education, in your life, and those young men showed me, they know what they need and they know what they need to learn. So that was a big component of the study, putting it together. One of the theorists that I used was Dr. Alexander Aston, who has a student involvement theory where he posits the more you participate in curricular/co-curricular activities, the likelier you are to persist in school as a college student. So I was glad to see that they understood why they needed this EOP program, and it's not just because they're from a specific background, but it keeps them engaged, it keeps them focused. They have to be able to go to college, they have to meet advisors, and that's what you need. So more programming like that, opportunities to support our students of color.
Now, I understand in regard to programming that you're, a huge believer, or you really support second chance programs.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So in dealing with people who were, incarcerated and understanding, the nature of what these programs are supposed to be, I had the privilege to speak to a lot of these men and women with these convictions on their record. And they're some of the best people you've probably ever met. Honest, understanding, what it is to make mistakes. They get to a point where, okay, I'm out, but I need a program. That program should be able to give them the aid, the access that they need to, lower the rates of recidivism. But most programs don't. So in speaking to a lot of our, people who have these backgrounds, it's important that we understand jobs. They need aid. Those societal stigmas out there that, they're lower than low because they may have a record, it just has to stop, So we're trying to change the narrative. So it's a lot of, way back when, being engaged with a lot of them, participating in some of the programs out here, and finding the aid and the support that they need.
Now, many individuals may hesitate to pursue further education due to various barriers, and I'm sure that all the stuff that's in the news right now about pursuing higher education and the opportunities that are available, it'll probably make it even harder for people, or make them even more hesitant to continue their higher education. What advice do you have for those who are hesitant about going back to school, but they may have dreams that they want to pursue?
So, I want to be very careful how I preface this. Life is about choices, right? I believe life is nothing but a series of choices that we make, and then constant adjustments to those choices. And if you have a goal, you have to go for it, right? Time is not on our side, it keeps going. And the more you kind of, deter yourself, the longer you're gonna, take to get to where you ultimately need to be. At this point, you have to fail big, right? Try. Right. You never know what could happen, if you'll succeed, if somebody's gonna help you. No matter what those barriers are, find a way to get it done. That's what I would say. And go out and be you, be great. You know, do it your way, the way you want to do it. You get one shot at life. No rewind buttons.
Right.
Go for it.
Now, I want to talk about representation in diversity. We hear this term a lot when we talk about movies, or anything that's going on in the media. We hear about representation and why that's so important. But it's just as important in education
Yeah.
as well. Can you just talk about how your presence may have contributed to just making sure that these students see themselves in higher
Yeah.
education, and in positions like that?
Sure. So, myself, one of the things that they've always talked about while we were in this doctorate program at St. John Fisher University was it's a 1%. It's only 1% of doctors out here in the U.S., whether you're medical, educational, and so on. So becoming that 1% meant everything. And then even when you look at the breakdown in our communities, how many people look like us who have this sort of degree, who come from where you come from, who understands the plight, right? I understand all the barriers you face because I faced it myself. And I'm outside in Jordans, in Yeezys, and so on. I shopped at the same stores, right? Like, so if I'm able to do that, I'm showing you that I made it out, right? That I was able to achieve the unthinkable where I'm from. Why can't you? So I'm the first doctor that I know that I can, like, people can text me, call me, which is amazing when it comes to access, right? I'm very accessible. Even professor, how many professors do you know, right? I'm a director, I'm a leader in a school. Great. How many people can you walk up to and say, hey, thank you, for just leading the way. Hey, I need advice. How did you do that? And I'm very accessible. I have no ego. So I'm here, So representation is everything, especially when we know when you go to these four-year colleges out here, you're predominantly white institutions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that means your numbers are going to look like maybe 20, 30% of you. And if that's the case, there's double of them, right? Your counterparts. So that's what's important to show people. You gotta be representative out here. And I do that by showing myself and what I've done. And I want them to, do the same.
Now, I also want to highlight, which is so important. Earlier in the show, you said that you went to Bronx Community College. I know that a lot of people, have opinions about community college. I think it's so amazing that, you can say, yeah, I went to community college and, like, look at where I'm at right now. I know sometimes, especially, like, in high school, people want to go to, like, the big name schools,
Yeah.
and they feel a little bit discouraged that, they're going to community college. Can you talk about, the importance of that and how it can be a stepping stone to a tremendous, amazing career in education and so on?
So I'm a firm believer in any institution you go to, whether it's community college, four-year degree, those first 2 years, you're learning a lot of the cores, how to be a student. You're taking a lot of the maths, those requirements that you need. So it gave me an opportunity to go and try. As I said, coming from Truman, it wasn't the best when it came to, just me focusing, the environment, education. So then when it comes to college and, I'm kind of like, okay, I'll try it. I got some friends there. And it was cost effective. It was like, great. Hey, I can afford that. So you learn. It's a unique experience. I know what it is to take that 12 bus, right, to, the 3 bus on University and head right up those Colston Hall, Meister Hall, and so on, so it's doable. It gave me an opportunity, to start my academic career, to learn what it is to be a student. I remember taking a course called Learning to Learn, which was very interesting because it was so simple, but it was a lot of the components that I needed that I didn't really understand.
I would agree with that as well. I went to community college first, right after high school, and I wasn't super happy about it. I was like, I wanted to go away. I wanted to go to a dorm.
Yeah.
And I think that going to community college for so many students in the Bronx, of course, there's amazing students in the Bronx, but considering how some of the high schools are, they do the best that they can. I think that community college is a really great stepping stone, as you mentioned, to learn how to learn,
Yeah.
to learn like what is expected of you in college. And I think that, for myself and probably so many other people, having that as an opportunity helped me for
Yeah.
when I did go to a 4-year school. So I love that you shared, that, because I think it can be so inspirational to so many people, whether they're coming out of high school or whether they're deciding, I do want to go back to school. So,
Right.
I appreciate you for
Oh,
sharing
no
that.
problem.
Now, in your journey from the South Bronx to becoming a doctor of education, you have demonstrated resilience and a commitment to excellence. How can we encourage and support young individuals from disadvantaged backgrounds to pursue their academic and career aspirations despite facing several adversities?
So for me, it's learning from your elders, learning from people who you've seen fail, um, and everybody fails at something. But it's your job to look at the mistakes and to determine, okay, do I want to do that? If I make that decision, am I going to make this? Is it going to be the same results? And I got to see that growing up, coming in these neighborhoods and somebody who came from Cypress Avenue in the Bronx to moving and migrating to Castle Hill to then migrating to Co-op City. You see 3 different parts of the Bronx, and they all have a very unique culture, and there's a lot of choices that people have to make. There's a lot of mistakes that people are making, and it's our job, especially the youth, to just determine what do you want your life to be. You see all that's going on out here with our young people, and they seem as though they're looking to throw their life away, and there's a bunch of people who are standing back and watching it. And I said this earlier, you cannot be scared of the Bronx. Like at some point, we got to represent ourselves as, myself who's a father, as a leader, and, encourage our young people, give them an idea of what they want their life to look like. Have a conversation with them. Because right now they're following. Most of them are just following the crowd. I love a lot of their entrepreneurial spirit, their energy, but you have to be able to channel that energy into the right way to kind of, see, identify what you want life to look like. Whether it's college, whether you want to try an entrepreneurial thing, you want to be a rapper, cool. You just don't have to, fall down the wayside, get a conviction, a felony, a misdemeanor. Don't throw your life away.
Right. Well, I'm so glad that you're kind of like going in that direction, because I want to talk about a little bit your experience as a life coach and kind of helping people get on the right track. Can you talk about that experience?
Sure. So I became a life coach through Psychology Today. And you see a lot of people who face a lot of similar issues that I had. So it allows me to do a one-to-one with a lot of people and just kind of encourage them and get them to understand, this is just a road bump. Life is happening, there's power in reaching out for help and seeking help and talking about what you're going through. And I think a lot of people consider that a weakness, especially where we come from. A lot of it is, to be guarded and to wear it and not let it out. And you got to be able to let it out and speak on what's going on. If this is where your life is headed and you don't want it to head that way, let's come up with a plan, a roadmap of what you want your life to look like. So it's also empowering to them to just be able to take charge of your life. I try to do a lot of like vision boards and, so we could make it plain, make the vision plain and walk in it, and sometimes people have everything up here and life keeps life in, as we said. And before you know it, a year went by, you're in the same space you were in, still unhappy. And here you have an opportunity to figure it out, put dates on it, what you want it to look like in the next 6 months. And it's a fantastic experience.
Now, can you just tell me, what are your hopes and, for the future of education, and what do you hope to see specifically for, people in our community? And as you mentioned before, young black males and Latino males in our community.
My hopes is that um, as much as our young people are passionate about music and about entrepreneurial spirits and wanting to do that, you'll have the same energy and vibe for education. But that also takes the institutions buying in. And my ultimate hope is that we have more programs, EOP programs, diversity programs in those colleges that can support a lot of our students, where they can kind of, see a lot more people who look like you, who can support you, who know what you're going through, versus, getting lost in these colleges. So I'm working now to just advocate for education and help those who have even moved on and, they're a little older, they're 21 and over. So right now, I'm at Excellence Community Schools, where I'm director of workforce programming, and finding those jobs that can help our students when it comes to entry-level positions straight from college. Or if you didn't go to college, what does that look like? Maybe you need a trade school. Maybe you need to sit down and work on a plan, for your life. So it's all about building partnerships out there, getting that aid for a lot of our students. And so it's fun. It's a very unique experience to be on this end. But I'm having a ball.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to, share with us that experience and talk about, everything you went through. I find it inspiring. I'm sure other people will do as well. So once again, thank you so much for joining us.
And thank you for having me. This is awesome.
We have to take a quick break, but we'll be back right after this.